Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, and welcome back to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I am so glad that I have the opportunity to share this beautiful conversation with Beeta Hashempour. She is a French lifestyle coach, and I am telling you, she is so darling. If you don't already follow her, just pause right now, go over to Instagram, find Mon Petit Four, and give her a follow because she's just beautiful and full of life and light and love. And you will be uplifted just looking at her beautiful feed and stories because her just essence comes through and everything that she does. So Beeta is the creator and founder of the French lifestyle brand, Mon Petit Four, which is devoted to bringing France home to you wherever you live. She loves helping women step into a more elevated and joyful lifestyle through her coaching programs. Through French style principles and mindset, women can experience more confidence and abundance in their day-to-day life. And she feels so excited that she gets to help women do that. In addition to her blog, to her membership that's centered around French food and lifestyle, she is also coaching women to be the best version of themselves and using the principles that she recognized in French women during her year living in Paris. So please sit back and prepare to enjoy the fabulous Beeta Hashempour. Beeta, I am so happy to see you, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. It feels like a really special week because we just got to chat yesterday in our mastermind call, which was so fun. So this is really, really special for me, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our listeners.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Like you said, I was excited to get to chat with you again this week. I just feel like we can talk forever whenever we chat. So it's always a good time.
Yes, I agree. In fact, I remember we met, I found out about you. We were in a business program course together, and there was a directory, and I found you and looked up your Instagram and your bio, and you have a membership, and it's all about French cooking and lifestyle. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must know this woman. So I messaged you, and then of course you're super famous, and
Oh yeah.
I didn't hear anything, which happens totally fine. But then a few months later, you had posted that you were moving to Paris from Southern California. And I commented and said, oh, I'm going to be there in October. We should have coffee because I follow you on Instagram. So you should totally meet me.
Which was a fabulous idea.
And you said yes.
Yes. And it was so great to see you. Honestly, I cannot remember why I didn't respond to that original message. So forgive me. Sometimes too, I don't know if this was the case, but sometimes too, those messages go into the other folder and I never check those. But yeah, I do remember when you left that comment and our first meeting, and then it just us, clicking and our friendship taking off from there.
It was so fun. And I love that the yes that you said to yourself to move to Paris was a catalyst and an inspiration for the yes that I was saying to myself, that then turned into the yes that several people were saying to themselves. And we all got to yes together in Paris. I'm so fascinated by the ripple effects of our decisions, good and bad, but I'm really fascinated by the ways that the good things that have been coming out of these great choices that we're making. So you lived in Paris for a year. I would love to hear how you came to that conclusion. I mean, it's not that hard, but I'd love to hear the story of how you got to say yes. But I'm also interested in how your yes took you back home.
Yeah. So, I think that the desire to move there obviously happened very easily. Once you do go to France and especially Paris, it's really easy to fall in love with the city, the culture, the people. And so that was the case with me. It was just that there were many years where the timing wasn't right in regards to my work, in regards to family, and also in regards to just my personal feeling about, I guess I should say, my confidence in myself and whether I could actually do it or not. And ironically, the year I decided to say yes to myself was the year the pandemic happened. So I did have to wait a little while until France was accepting these applications and all of that again. However, I can say that when I did make that decision to move, I was at a point in my life where I was actually very content in my life in California, where I'm from. I was born and raised here. And I was happy with my friends, my work. I was already working full time in my own business by that point. Like you said, I had my membership. So it was funny. It wasn't like a moment of, I need to get away from this life or escape a bad breakup or anything of that nature. It was more just me thinking, what the heck am I waiting for? Like, no one's going to give me permission to do this except for myself. And I was in a situation where, I did work for myself. So I didn't even need to ask a boss for, the time off, the sabbatical or anything like that. So I really just decided that I wasn't going to wait till I was old and potentially, no, more like I was thinking like 65 retired, like finally broken free from work and feel like, oh, I'm financially secure now and I can do it, I had no idea how I would find an apartment, how I'd get a bank account, all of those things, which are notoriously a bit tricky in Paris to do. But it ended up working out so seamlessly that I just know it was divine timing in my life for me to say that yes. And it was definitely very hard to leave too at the end of the year. Yeah. I mean, but for me, a lot of people actually messaged me at the end of the year and they were like, are you sad you're leaving? Are you going to miss Paris? And I was like, of course, I miss Paris even when I go like on vacation for a week. I'm always sad. Yeah.
When I'm in Versailles, I miss Paris.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And so, yeah, that was definitely something I felt, but I consistently also told people and felt that I was not actually saying goodbye. Because for me, my relationship with Paris, my time in Paris was not at an end at the end of the year. I had just decided that, especially for my business and my personal relationships with my family and wanting to be a part of their lives, it was better for me at this point in my life to come back at the end of the year abroad. But that's definitely not the last time Paris will see me.
100%. When I was planning to go earlier this year, when Amelia and I both got to spend some time with you there, when I brought it up to the principal of her school about me taking her with me for 6 weeks, he said, oh, yes, of course. Don't ever let school get in the way of a good education. Okay, thank you. So then he said, I just need to talk to her teacher. So I did, and it's second grade. So I think it's going to be okay. But I was talking to her and she said, oh, I think that's a really great idea. And it's once in a lifetime. And I think you should absolutely go. And I said, oh, hold please. Full disclosure, if you think that this is only happening once, and that's why you're saying yes, I just want you to know that I plan to make this as normal as possible. And I plan to go to France with Amelia as often as you people let me do that. So this is definitely not a once in a lifetime. And so like you, not a goodbye, just I'm going to go switch out some clothes and take my dog home, and I'll see you soon, Paris.
That's amazing. And good for you, Wendy, because I feel like a lot of people, this is where they get kind of hung up when they are thinking about dreams like this. They're thinking, oh, well, I can never take my kid out of school, or what would their teachers say, or what would the community say, the neighbors, there's so many things that run through people's minds. And I think all of those things I've learned, at least in my experience, are really just that little voice of insecurity in our mind that wants to protect us. And I say that in a really, I think, loving way, because we have to love all parts of ourselves. And that is one part that's there, and it's there to protect us from our fears, whether it's fear of failure, fear of disappointment, whatever it is. Right. And just recognizing that that doesn't necessarily mean that that voice needs to be the dominant voice within us, and that really we can allow ourselves to dream as big as we want. And you just don't have to even worry about how it's going to come about. Just hold on tight to that dream and know that there is always the possibility for that. I mean, if you look at, I think both of us, what we both do, it's very unique, and we sort of have crafted our businesses to be what we want them to be. Right. And it's not like any kind of, I mean, whenever people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, how do I say this like in a neat little tidy sentence? Because it's not easy to just be like, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a teacher, or whatnot. So, but that's the beauty of it. We get to do what we love. And if I had told myself all those years ago, oh, you'll never get to do that. Oh no, nobody does that. Then I wouldn't be where I am today. So.
Right, right. I'm so glad that you acknowledged those voices, but didn't let them drive the bus. That's so
Yeah.
great. And it's true, trying to describe what it is we do, besides saying dreamy, it's fabulous, it's lovely. I feel like my bio changes all the time. But recently it has landed on I curate opportunities for women to say yes to themselves.
I love that. I did something similar. I said, I help women elevate their style and step into a more abundant lifestyle.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Now, your membership that you had prior to going to Paris and you've had for many years, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And I'd love to hear how you are adding on to that, how you're evolving some of the things that you do based on this experience and based on your desires changing and your desires evolving as well.
Yeah. So when I first started just in the online space, I started with a French food blog. So it was a lot of just recipes and cooking, baking. And that eventually evolved into a membership that was purely for cooking and baking. And it still is very much that at the heart of it. But over the years, both to the blog and the membership, I added this whole lifestyle component because I was traveling to France more and more each year. And I just wanted to adopt so many of those lifestyle practices that I was seeing and I could see were very beneficial and share that with others. So that's what I did. And then when I finally lived in Paris last year, I got a chance to see how Parisians operate on a day-to-day level, which is different than when you're a tourist. You don't always get that inside, perspective. And so getting the opportunity to do that was amazing because it opened up my eyes to all the ways they do things, in my opinion, much better
Right?
than we do in the States, especially as women, and the way we take care of ourselves and acknowledge ourselves. And so over the summer, I started coaching women one-on-one on how they could adopt a lot of those French lifestyle practices and principles when it comes to their mindset, their personal style, beauty routines, their wellness regimen. So all of that, they could apply what I had learned and observed in the French and use that to elevate their life. And when I say step into a more abundant lifestyle, what I really mean is an abundance of confidence, an abundance of love, peace, calm. It's not just abundance in the monetary or financial sense.
Sure. Right.
Although that's a side effect.
Yes, it is. It is. And it is an overall mindset, and it has profound impact when you apply the practices and take the time to learn how to acknowledge those limiting beliefs and not give them the keys to the car, but to say, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Love all the parts of yourself, but then thank them for their service and let them know you're not needed at this time. Thank you so much. You've got this. So that it's a practice because mastery comes from repetition, and you need to be continually practicing these things. I'm really eager to hear how, if there's 3 or 4 things that you really noticed that were different about French women that you've been able to incorporate into your work with your private clients.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes to what you just said in regards to habits. And one of those habits I noticed that French women really have is taking care of their skin. And that kind of ties in with their beauty regimen too, but they don't wear actually a ton of makeup. The whole French approach is to look as natural as possible, but really enhance what you've got going on, what you've already been given by God. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And they really take care to incorporate their own routines and regimens on a consistent daily basis. And I think one thing I notice a lot with my clients when they come to me is that they don't have that consistency. And it's because they often let family, husbands, kids, all of the stuff work. And that's just something that you don't see as much in France. And French women really, they have the same obstacles, the same life struggles that women everywhere do, but they're very adamant about making sure they devote that time for themselves every day. So it can be in the form of, like I said, a skincare routine. Sometimes you'll see a woman who has to have her 4 p.m. espresso every day at the cafe. And it's not just about the actual espresso as much as it may be just about that time of having a little break in her day that's just for herself, just to have a moment of peace and calm in her day. And so that's something that I definitely work on with clients, and incorporating time for yourself, even if it's a little time at first, because it takes some practice to build that up and build that consistency, but it can be done. And I think that in general, women, when they're often trying to make any kind of life change, they look at it as an all or nothing sort of thing, and they get very overwhelmed by that. And it's like, no, you don't have to embody the French lifestyle overnight. It can be a step-by-step process. So that's definitely a big one. And also something that I naturally just observed a lot, because I'm a foodie myself and I dined out quite a bit when I lived in Paris, was just the sense of presence that French people, I don't want to limit it just to French women, but French men also have when they're eating. And you can see that in the US, we often are either very quick when we eat, very distracted when we eat.
Right. Multitasking.
Yeah, we're multitasking. Even people who are sitting out at a restaurant, they may be in a group and they're just like so loud and involved in the conversation and not really paying attention as they're eating the food. And so that's very different in France. It's a very, like, when people talk, they put the fork and knife down. They have the conversation before they pick it up again and continue eating. So there's a lot of presence in dining. And I think that's huge, not just mindset wise, but also the effects on how much you're eating, portion control,
right,
and maintaining your health.
So, oh, that's amazing.
It's funny now when I go out to eat and the waiter, delivering fabulous customer service in the US, because we love that, right. Will come up to me like 10 times during a meal, like, is everything okay? Do you need anything? I'm like, why is he bugging me so much? Like, go away, mister, I'm trying to eat. Or I feel really rushed sometimes because I'll be sitting there with a group and I'm not usually that person. At least I should say I haven't been in the past. That's the slow eater. We all know that person who takes forever to eat. That's not usually me, but I have become that person just from my time living abroad. And it's been beneficial though, because I know kind of what my limits are. I know when I'm full, and really no food is off limits for me. And this is really big because in the US, we're all about restrictions, diets, all the fad stuff that everybody jumps on, and in an effort to really control their eating and the habits around it. But I feel like I gained a sense of freedom in France just following their approach.
Oh, I love that. And I love just how that act of being present at mealtime checks off so many boxes. So it's connection with the people that you're with. It's connection with yourself, listening to your body when you're saying, oh my gosh, this is so delicious. And I've had enough. There's this knowing that they will make more. You will have something delicious at the next meal. You don't have to order, large. They don't serve large portions, but you're not going to go hungry. It's going to be amazing. The bread is only good the morning you buy it. You can't save it. So it's just, I feel like it is the antithesis of what we have here in the States. And I'm totally generalizing, but just, even growing up in California, there's just, it's not, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously just verbally processing this, but I don't feel like it's hoarding food, but there's plenty because we're in California and that, there are farms all around, so there's a lot to have. And so we buy a lot and waste a lot. And it's just a really interesting relationship with the amounts of things. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the thing themselves.
Yeah. And it is a scarcity kind of mindset. Because you're right. In California, you've lived here. People are very conscious of their diet. And in general, I notice, I'm stereotyping too here, but a lot of people do care about the quality of the food they're eating. That said, sometimes they take it to the extreme where I think when they are presented with something like a fabulous chocolate souffle or whatnot, it can trigger that sort of scarcity feeling like, oh, I never really eat this. I never get this. And then you kind of end up binging on that.
Right.
And so yeah, I think there is a little bit of the scarcity mindset in there, and it is something you have to train your brain. You have to rewire your brain.
Right.
And so that's definitely something that I work on a lot of clients with because it is something they struggle with. And I totally identify with that because I'm not someone who is naturally like a really slim person. I've always had to be mindful of my consumption and diet. So I can relate 100% to that.
Yeah, I am appreciating this conversation and just thinking how it is an underused muscle to be mindful of what's going on in your own body, where we would have a tendency, even, as a mom, like I'm paying attention to the clock and when we need to get ready for, to leave the house for school. And I'm paying attention to who's fed, are the chickens fed and the dogs fed and Amelia's fed. And I have a cup of coffee and okay, I'll take a bite of this while I'm standing up, right, walking, toward the car or something. It's just, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Taking time to be present, it's a great practice that we can do one meal at a time.
Yeah.
And bring in those practices that are a slowing down, that are, of course, it's better for your digestion. Of course, it's better for your mindset. Of course, all of these things, but it really is two birds, one stone. If you can implement this practice of sitting down for your meal and putting your napkin on your lap and using flatware and chewing your food 10 times before you're swallowing it and not be looking at your phone or your calendar or whatever, just not multitasking and taking that 10 minutes. I mean, you could turn that into a meditation practice so quickly. Oh, yeah. Wow. I just felt like I had a massage and a day off and I had a great meal and I actually tasted my coffee and I sat down while I was doing it.
Yeah, I think people think sometimes that it has to be like this really efforted thing, like, oh, I need to do a spa day to be able to relax. And it's just not the case. That is great if you have the time and, resources to do that. Awesome. But if not, something as simple as, I just shared this, for instance, in my Instagram stories today. In the morning, lighting a candle, putting some music on as you're getting ready, and making your own bathroom feel like a spa experience. Wear your cozy robe. Why don't you, do your skincare routine, your makeup if you do that, and complete that in that kind of environment and ambiance to just add a little bit of luxury to your morning. And that doesn't require you to really do much other than light the candle and turn the music on. If you're already doing the other things, then, it shouldn't be much work, but it has a profound effect on your mindset and your mood.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to try that tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Julia and I are getting ready because she'll find that that's very special as well. She's really mindful of things like that, and she knows our routine, and it doesn't currently include music and a candle. So, and when I tell her it was your idea,
oh my gosh,
she is a super fan.
You know what though? Like, that is so many kids. That's the other thing, is a lot of what I learned when it comes to getting ready for the day. With my makeup, my clothes, I always get dressed and do my makeup every morning before I sit down and have coffee and breakfast. And this is a routine I actually learned from my mom. And I remember growing up, every time she'd walk down the stairs in the morning, she was dressed up, done up, and she looked beautiful, and I noticed that as a kid, and it stuck with me. And it was like a routine that I unconsciously adopted in my own life. And I think Amelia, and all kids really, look at their parents and they adopt these practices too, just learning and watching their parents. So I think as a mom too, it's really important that when you're taking care of yourself too, you realize that this is having a very positive effect on your kids as well.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Now I can't wait for tomorrow morning.
I love it. You'll have to take a photo with Amelia. That'll be cute.
I will. So moving to Paris for a year seems like a very easy decision, and we've talked about that. How did you decide? What was your process for deciding to not stay there? And how was that a yes for yourself?
So honestly, I would say about like 4 months before I needed to come back, I was still wrestling with this idea, and this decision, I should say. And it's definitely something I knew, it was on my mind, because I knew that if I did want to stay, I had to do the prep for that and renewing the visa and all of that anyways. So it was something I was thinking about. And I was really just leaning into what I felt deep within me. So I think there was a lot of voices around me. There's a lot of people who really enjoyed seeing me in Paris, which I don't blame them. I enjoyed being in Paris. Right. And there was also a part of me that felt like, it was very difficult to be far from my family and to not have them a part of my everyday life. I'm incredibly close to my family, my mom and sister especially. We're like the three amigas. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen them a bunch. But I really wrestled with, if I want to continue living in Paris, now it's not just like a year abroad. Now it's me really moving my life to France. And right. Is that going to be beneficial for me emotionally, mentally, and like I said, business wise, or, is it better to go back? And so I really wrestled with that. And when I finally decided that, I think I should go back and instead just do I call it my part-time life in Paris, where I make extended trips to France. When I thought about that, I felt very good about the decision, and I felt at peace with it. I didn't have any doubts about it. And like I said, I really didn't have that sort of devastating sadness like in me when I was leaving, because I didn't feel like I was leaving for good. So I think that anytime you're making a decision, you have to block out the outside noises. A lot of people will offer you their opinions and thoughts, and well-meaning often. And I was really blessed that, you know, my mom and sister were supportive either way. They didn't try to push me in any which way. So when I came to that decision myself and I felt at peace with it, that's when I knew that I was saying yes to myself and I was making the right choice for me. But yeah, it didn't happen overnight.
Right. But it's so good. You know, it speaks to our earlier conversation about even when you're sitting at the table, when you become accustomed to listening to your body, it will tell you when you are full. It will tell you when you should move to Paris. It will tell you when it's time to go back. It will tell you date that boy. It will tell you break up with that boy. It will tell you buy the shoes. It usually always says buy the shoes.
Yeah.
By the way, but so you got to really ask twice on that one. But it is so important because, like you said, people are well-meaning and we need community. It's very important. But if they are making that decision for you, they're going on with their lives and you are living with the decision that you made. So you really have to have skin in the game and make sure that it is in alignment for you and know that you are also allowed to change your mind.
1000%. And, you know, every single person is making decisions in their life based off their personal path and experience. So, you know, I could completely understand how someone sitting at home looking at my feed on Instagram would be like, how could she leave Paris, you know? But
what will I do if you don't live in Paris anymore?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. People living out their dreams vicariously through others. But yeah, I think that they're just thinking of like, well, what would I do if I was in her position? And they're making that decision based off where they're at in their life. And that's why I try, when I talk to friends or anyone who really asks for my advice, I try to tell them, well, here's the thought process like I would go through. Here's how I would sit and try to tap into your intuition rather than me saying, I think you should do this or you shouldn't do that, because none of us can really offer that. If you think about it, every person has a unique path and experience, and only you can make the decision for yourself. So yeah, I don't know. And people often tell me like, oh, you're such an Aries, you're so impulsive. But I think that every single person has that impulsive part to them. It's just some of us are more tuned in to what it is we really want, while others may need to dig a little deeper to figure that out. And that takes a little time. And they may come off as a bit indecisive or whatnot, but we all have that inner knowing that we can tap into.
And we can trust it.
Yes.
And sometimes it is not subject specific.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this, I think 3 times now on the podcast, because it still makes me really surprised that I was presented with an opportunity to go to Paris for New Year's Eve, which of course it's like, oh, yes, okay. And then I bought my ticket and I was like, I wonder why I don't feel great about that. And I made a decision to change my mind and not go. And I immediately felt so much peace about that. So it's not like, oh, I can put Paris as in my always a yes bucket, which I thought it was in there. But just having this practice, one of my coaches, when I was sharing with her, like she was asking me, you're seeming not yourself, what's going on? So I shared, like, I don't know, it should be great. I'm going to Paris. But she just asked me to close my eyes and take a deep breath and think about going to Paris for New Year's Eve. And then she asked me, like, does that feel expansive or constrictive? Like, or do you feel resistance in that? And that took 10 seconds, not the 2 days of me like trying to figure out why I'm in a funk. What is happening? I'm, in menopause. So it's not whatever it normally would have been, it's like, I can't even remember the last time I was, not feeling myself for seemingly no reason. So it's just, even when when you've experienced it, you just have to be reminded, and you can do that in 10 seconds, in 20 seconds, in 30 seconds. You can fear and excitement feel the same. Excitement just has breath with it.
Right.
So it feels the same in you, but if you're afraid, you're holding your breath. If you're excited, you're breathing through it. So you can trust yourself, and you can practice listening to your body and then acting on what your body is telling you, and you will feel better when you listen to it.
Oh, 100%. I really do believe our emotions, especially, are that kind of compass for us. So if you are feeling a negative emotion, just kind of sitting with that and digging a little deeper and figuring out, is this coming from fear, or is this coming from, I don't actually want to do this, or this isn't right for me? And I know it's funny. People might be like, what? She didn't take the, New Year's trip to Paris, but I totally get that. And I think that everything has really, truly divine timing in our life. And when you do feel ready to take that trip, it's like a big yes in you. You are so excited. You can't contain yourself. I mean, I had people who were like, are you going to go to Paris in the fall? Which was only just a couple months after I had come back. And I was like, listen, right now, I just don't even want to see an airport. I don't want to pack a suitcase. I had to go through a lot to move my stuff back. So yeah, I get that feeling 100%.
I think that we can trust, when it doesn't feel right, but we can also trust when it feels really good. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's some fear associated with feeling good, mm-hmm. with saying yes to a really good thing, because we can think those limiting beliefs that we talked about of, who am I to do this? What will other people think if I just go off to Paris for a year, or whatever the thing is? But the things that we hear about, the desires that we have, the dreams, the thoughts, the plans, all those things that make our heart swell, that's your sign. Like, that is indicative that this is for you. And you just have to be willing to be super happy. Yeah. How great are you willing to let your life get is a question that you have to ask. It's a question that Gay Hendricks asks in The Big Leap. Just how happy are you willing to let life get?
Yeah. And there's a definite resistance to that. Weirdly, we think about it, like on paper, you think, who wouldn't want to be happy? But there's so many built-in limitations, that we've acquired through our life that really does get in the way. And I think a huge thing is, when you're saying yes to yourself, is letting yourself know you are worthy. Worthiness is something that so many of us, especially women, really struggle with. And they're waiting for someone to give them that sense of worthiness, but nobody can do that except for yourself. True worthiness comes from within. So I think I'm just going to say it out here for all the podcast listeners. You are worthy. You have to start practicing that mantra every morning. One of my favorites, Louise Hayes, she had like a meditation that she would do where she'd say, stand in front of the mirror and you look at yourself in the mirror, and it sounds silly, but you tell yourself, I am beautiful. I am worthy. I deserve good things. I deserve happiness. And it seems crazy and silly when you first do it, but after a while, it works. You think
right?
about it.
And you have to have eye contact with yourself.
Yeah.
Was that in Mirror Work? I read her book, Mirror Work, and you were supposed to, on the first day, every time you passed a mirror
Yeah.
or your reflection in the window, you had to look at yourself and say, I love you. And be really excited about that. I love you. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I mean, how many times have you told yourself something negative that it's become your belief now?
Right.
So it just takes, like you said, it's a habit. You got to practice it. You got to flip that around until you do believe it. You may not believe it the first even 30 times you say it, but after a while, it starts seeping in and you go, well, hey,
I do love me.
Yes.
And mastery comes from repetition.
Yep, 100%.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much. Please tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you, how they can work with you one-on-one, all the good things, please.
Yeah. So anyone who's interested in learning more about me, my recipes, my coaching, anything of that nature can head over to monpetit4.com. And if they want to, message me, chat, or just follow my day-to-day stories, be sure to follow me on Instagram at monpetit4.
Perfect. Well, we will link all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much, my friend. It was so great to be with you. And I look forward to seeing you in Paris again when we are both there and both happy to be there.
I cannot wait. I will be waiting with a glass of champagne to toast.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
I will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.